My name is Corporal Sam Rook Anders. I wasn't a frontline soldier, but I was there, crouched between explosions, in the trenches, in the rubble. They called me the engineer, a quiet guy with a wrench and a spanner, as if I had all the tools to fix a broken world. We were fighting in Ashvale, a land torn apart, where silence was only the breath before the next round of gunfire. They always say engineers don't fight the same way as the rest, but when you're in the heart of Ashvale, dodging mortar rounds, you don't get to choose the kind of soldier you want to be. I remember one night, deep into winter. We were all huddled in the shelter, the air thin and bitter cold. There was a dead silence, the kind that freezes your bones. Doc started telling jokes, cracking up about his hometown, and Layla joined in, teasing him about the old flannel shirt he always wore. That's the funny thing about war, the fear was always there, but so were these moments, little pieces of joy, breaking through like cracks of sunlight. It was the laughter that kept us human. One night, I was working on a busted tank engine, fingers so numb I could barely twist a bolt. Layla kept watch beside me, her eyes sharp as steel. She suddenly whispered, "Rook, I think there's movement." She was right. Moments later, the silence was ripped apart by the sound of a sniper, and we had to run. That night I realized fear could hit you harder than any bullet. But even then, we laughed about it afterward, in the shelter, as if laughter was armor. As if our jokes were enough to keep the reality away. Then came the darker days. I saw men I'd spoken to just that morning, suddenly gone, just like that. Doc was the one who had to watch it up close. There was one young guy, a kid, really, barely 18. Doc tried everything he could, hands shaking as he worked, but in the end, we could only sit with him as he took his last breaths. I'll never forget the silence that followed. You don't realize what sorrow feels like until you're surrounded by it, and then all you can do is find a way to survive. But then, there was that day. The day the guns stopped. It was quiet, so quiet you could hear the world breathe. We stood there, a ragged, battered bunch. It wasn't joy, not quite. It was something deeper, a feeling that maybe we'd made it through, that we were still here, and that was enough. For once, the fear and sorrow lifted, replaced by something close to peace. And I realized, standing there with the people who'd become family, that we'd carried each other through something unimaginable. In Ashvale, I wasn't just a soldier or an engineer. I was part of something greater, a bond that would never leave us. And maybe, just maybe, that's what made it all worth it.